welcome. Thank you for coming. We're expecting a couple more. There is a lot to get through, so we really do need to get started and get going. Open session planning is. Are you aware of anybody coming, Liz?
No. Oh gosh, what's his name? The guy from Kirklees might have come tonight, but I think they really wanted to come to full council to talk about Wolfstones. Those are the only people. I think next week they want to come.
Right.
To talk about what, Liz?
Wolfstones.
Ah.
The consultant.
That's going to fester, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah. Giles Cheetham.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I sent him a link today, but if he's not here, he's not coming.
Wasn't Noel Scanlon he wanted to?
Oh, I got confused whether that was for today or for next week. I think it was, they want to hear council making the final decision about it. Yeah. And I think they'll wait until Monday.
Yeah, I thought that was for next week.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
You're right.
Yeah.
Hello, Paul.
Hello.
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 Right. Okay. Well, we'd made a start. We'd just open session on planning.
Gonna make an apology, Mary. If I've got to go at 7:30 because the computer's required for another meeting by the wife.
Oh, I see. Right. Thank you. Some things are important.
Got to get me
priorities right, Paul.
I've got to feed the cat at 7, so you know.
Absolutely. That's terrible. Right. Recording. Pat and Liz were talking about perhaps slightly rewording this, given that this is item 71, given that now that routinely these meetings are being recorded. So perhaps that'll change in the next agenda. So I presume there's no members of the public here, so presumably nobody wishes to record. Item 72, apologies for absence.
No, I haven't got any.
No, I haven't had any either. Okay. 73, to receive members and officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in items on the agenda. Anything to declare? Anybody? No?
No.
Oh, Rachel?
I was going to say I've got to check which item it is now. One of them is our friend and neighbour on the list to Kirklees. Let me just check which one it is. Number 16 on the list, Crossgate.
Number 16.
Thank
you, Rachel. Thanks. Any more? Anybody else? No? Thanks. Right. Written requests for new DPI dispensations. Anybody? No. Right. Item 75. Any of these items to be discussed in private session? Anybody wish? No. Right. Okay. Right. Which moves us on to the minutes of the previous meeting, which you've all had. There is an addition to those minutes. Richard realised that he'd missed out from those minutes, and I didn't spot it. That he'd missed out that we had agreed that the final decision on conforming. This is for. To do with item 70 on minutes, the final approval on confirming whether we're going to continue to object to the diversion of footpath 60 would go to full council, which we agreed at the last meeting, but was unfortunately missing from the first set of minutes. Do you wish me to read out the text that is suggested?
No.
Yeah, okay, so the text is suggested is that the final approval on confirming the objection to the proposed diversion of footpath 60 would lie with a decision from the full council in the light of advice from the planning committee and any further legal advice and information arising pertinent to the issue. That's
pertinent to the issue.
That is some sentence, but I mean, does it Thank you. Does it reflect what we agreed? Yeah. Can I just have a show of thumbs or something? Thanks, Rachel. Yes. Okay. People happy with that. Right. We will of course be discussing the Wolfstones later later on the agenda. Right. Moving on. Item 77. Completed Kirklees planning applications list. Which is simply the list with our decisions from the last meeting. So I assume
Noted.
happy with that. Noted. Very happy. Noted. Thank you. Right. So moving on to the planning applications, the meat of the meeting in a way. Item 78. New planning applications from Kirklees. Just before we kind of launch into them, a couple of things. The first one is I feel that the new system of getting members of the planning committee to look at areas which are not represented on the committee seems to have worked really well. So thank you to everybody who's looked at extra wards. And also Rich took it upon himself to write to all councillors who are not on the planning committee to see if they could submit some comments on planning. And there was a really good response to that as well. So councillors Sweeney, East, Hall, Carey and Feeney all sent back comments. So that I feel that's worked well. I have been a bit concerned about this. This is kind of incredible shrinking committee. It's quite small really in comparison to the amount of work it's. But if if other councillors are going to put in the effort to do that, that's good. So that worked well. So yeah, thanks to Rich really for initiating that. Just before we launch in, did everybody else have difficulty with the maps? Looking at the maps this time, the location maps on the.
I have to say, I have found for the last 4 or 5 times, I've used Google Maps. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's quicker.
Yeah.
You can have a street view if you wanted, as well as seeing where it is. And
You can
and
actually see them, can't you?
Yeah, you can see them. You get a little photo of it next to the map.
The system, it seemed to have. Kirklees seemed to have adopted a new system, and it just certainly wasn't working for me. Right, shall we make a start then? The first one, which is Holmfirth Central, Rachel.
Yes, Arndale Grove. I thought it looked fine. Subject to there were some concerns expressed by one of the neighbours about how close the building was. So it was a proximity issue. So, but I think overall it looks okay, subject to the neighbours' concerns being addressed.
Yes, I had a look as well. I thought it was okay. So if we say support that, but with reference to the recommendations from Kirklees officers, there was something from Highways about parking surface and bin storage and the neighbourhood. The neighbour's objection. Okay, moving on. The second one, which was Upper Home Valley.
Yes, I think I was covering this one. I think.
Yes, thank you, Rachel.
This is one where it's sort of, I don't know. I can understand why someone would want it, but I just aesthetically it displeases me because it just looks silly. It's like it's quite a reasonably handsome sort of pair of semis, and the thought of just chopping the heart out of the front garden of one of them to park a car, which you then have to kind of reverse parallel to the road, and you can't really turn round. And I think that the Highways people at Kirklees said, oh well, it's a slight improvement because cars could pass each other more easily. And I thought, well, that's only really if you regard that dropped pavement as effectively an extra bit of road rather than a safe passage road. It was right next to literally right next to the school. So I was trying to find reasons for why I thought we should refuse it, because I just didn't think it was
Right.
appropriate. And I think I was concerned about the well, the fact that it cuts across the pavement right in front of where people are then at the moment probably lining up to go into school. I don't really like the loss of gardens if it can be avoided. But the main thing was really the impact on the aesthetic of a pair of cottages, which it just if it was a separate house, I'd have less of an issue. But because it's a pair and it's got a
It's
kind
a
of
pair.
frontage, it just looks wrong. So don't know
Right.
how we take it into account.
We had a different view. This is one on which Councillor Kath Bellamy gave enthusiastic support to it, and it was on the basis of safety during school coming and going times. And I think Councillor Roberts also, I don't know why, but she commented and thought it was a jolly good thing. So we've so did anybody else have time to look at this one? Or look at this
Madam
one?
Chairman, I think knowing that area very well,
Yeah.
I think they've already said that it was going to be a better thing. I would think it's a dangerous thing if they cut out a bit of the property there, and there's people going to be walking past where cars are moving and manoeuvring and one thing and another. And I would have suggested that Kirklees Highways have got concern and cause for concern, and that I would have thought that it should be not allowed.
Yeah, I mean the highways. Kirklees Highways response was to support it with some provisions around surface and not having tall bushes. So we've got a kind of impasse here, really.
I would have thought that owners of the property are probably trying to address the fact that people presumably park outside their property, particularly at school drop-off and pick-up, and therefore by turning their garden into the parking space, nobody else can park there except themselves, which I understand, but I just think because it's parallel with the road, it also means that they could be driving along and then reversing in or reversing out, and that just doesn't seem particularly appropriate right next to the school. But as I say, it's the aesthetic thing that I just don't think it'll look right.
Right.
It's a loss
So
of garden amenity, isn't it? So I don't think we should, from an environmental point of view, we shouldn't encourage the concreting of open space that's already there.
Yes, it should be porous, as I keep bleating on about.
Yes, I
Yes,
think you're
yes,
exactly
and
right.
Kirklees
you're right,
Highways
Pat.
have raised that issue. Have said that.
Porous is too expensive for most people, I think. That's
Yeah,
the
well,
problem.
it's too expensive for the world for them not to, Paul.
No, but that is a problem. I'm saying I'm not condoning
No,
it.
it is. It costs a lot more. It does cost a lot more.
Right. So can we come to a decision on this one? So let's just give a show of hands, really. So how many of you are objecting to this? 2, 3. This is going to be really difficult, isn't it?
I'm abstaining, Mary, because I don't know where it is or what it's like.
I think I think the objects have it. So let's object to this one then. Right. Now the next one has been withdrawn. So yeah, number 3 has been withdrawn, so we don't need to look at that one.
That was Sunday school, eh?
The Sunday school, yeah, it's been withdrawn. Yeah, right. Moving on to number 4. Just to Michael, Councillor Pogson was deputed to look at this, but we've had a message from Councillor Sweeney saying he's no objection to this.
I looked at it. It's
Pat.
I mean, I didn't have to look at it, but I just did anyway.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
It's quite puzzling. There are neighbour objections, and clearly this man doesn't get on, or this person doesn't get on with the neighbours, because they don't believe it when they say it's going to be agricultural. Now, there's nothing on the plans or the application to suggest that it isn't going to be agricultural. But clearly the neighbours don't believe that, and the objections are on the basis that they don't believe it's going to be agricultural. I don't think, I suspect, I'm assuming it's not our job to make judgments about the honesty of applicants. And it be unremarkable to be an agricultural building. There were no, it doesn't, it sort of says what they're going to store in there. It's a bit woolly, it is a wee bit woolly, but I don't know what anybody else makes of it.
I suppose, Rachel.
I was just going to say that I think when you claim something's going to be agricultural, you usually, normally when we have agricultural things, then someone's saying that they have a was it agricultural holding number or something, so it can justify it. Because I think what the neighbours are saying is it's just stuff for mowing the lawn and pieces. And I think they and they say, well, you could use existing outbuildings. Well, we've no idea if you could use existing outbuildings, but it is quite a big structure that they're putting in.
It is a very big structure.
And it's
Sorry.
over the top for if it is just lawnmowers. But so I'd be tempted to leave it to the planning officer, actually, that one.
Paul?
It depends on how many acres you've got as to how big a building you can put up. If you've got an agricultural holding number, you can qualify for an agricultural building. I think a prime example was about 25 years ago. One was built in Epworth, and 6 months later, an application for a house was made as the barn was redundant. And at that time, it approved redundancy before you could get planning applications. And the comment that was made by the Epworth Council at the time, the Schools Council at the time, was how can something be made redundant that's never worked? And if it is that the neighbours here are feeling that this is something that's been put up for another reason and it's never going to be used, I think proof of use ought to be found by the planning officer. And if that is the case, and is the building too big for the holding? If, as Pat said, it could be too large. Could we question, is this building too big for the holding? And if so, could they prove what use they're going to need it for? Because usually it's storage, and if it's livestock, it's got to be further away from other properties and whatever. So I would think it can be one or a combination of the two.
Thanks, Paul. Tom, and then I think we better move on.
Yeah, could we also, if we had to approve it, could we do it with the provision that it remains an agricultural building? So that it cannot be altered? And well, I don't know what the materials are used for this building, but maybe it would be better if they used like wood or some more agricultural material.
It is. It's something like wood padding. It's a phrase I haven't come across before, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yorkshire boarding.
So it's not something then.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's not something they can just put a few windows in and change it into a house then. So if it's something like that, I would be a bit more sympathetic with them, because it doesn't look like it's going to be changed straight into a house. Look, I think like what my dad suggested is that they prove the need for the building, and also maybe put provision in there that it is to remain as an agricultural building and not be converted into a dwelling.
I mean, I'm inclined to go with what Rachel said. I mean, this is Greenbelt, and it's, you know, I think the suspicion this is not a genuinely agricultural building. So, I suggest we leave it. We leave it to a decision by Kirklees officers.
Can we maybe
Would you be happy?
Leave to Kirklees officers due to lack of clarity on agricultural nature of building use?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are people happy with that?
Why we haven't.
Yeah. Are you happy? Could you just have a show of hands then? Are we happy with that? So leave it. Thank you. Thanks. Right. Okay, moving on. Number 5, which would have been.
It's another one of Joe's, I think.
Michael, yes. Yeah, he said he had no objections, Councillor.
No, I didn't. I don't know. I was surprised there was going to be slaughtering on site, but But I can't see
Yeah.
any reason to object.
Okay,
What-
anybody?
What's that question, Pat? They're going to use it as a slaughterhouse?
Yeah, for their own, they sell their own meat. It isn't primarily a slaughterhouse. There will be some slaughter, is my understanding.
If it is,
They're
if it-
replacing a building that was for pigs with a larger one that is for cattle,
right.
and part of it there will be some slaughtering.
And if that is the case, it will have to be up to a certain standard with the
Yeah.
environment.
That's right. But that's not
Yeah.
us. That's the whole.
I
That's all
think
the
that we can't object to the building. It's a case of what is going to be carried on there to be acceptable by the
Well,
environment.
it isn't near other houses or anything like that. I mean, it's not like children are going to be woken up in the morning by the screaming of tortured animals.
Right, can we, right, I think we've probably spent enough time on this. I think the genuine feelings we want to support. Is that
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
support? Okay, so it's just support. Okay, show of hands, yep. You're busy writing, I can see. Thank you. Right, and next, 10 Croddingly Thongs Bridge. Darryl, you are going to have a look at these, the Thong one.
Thongsbridge? No, all right, is that me? Yes.
Yes.
There seems to be an awful lot going on in a quite small area, so I'm not sure whether it's suitable, as it were.
Just Councillor Roberts did look at this one and she supported it because she has a concern about the bats, but apart from that, she's supportive of it. Anybody
Besides
else?
about the bats,
Bats.
it's quite a nice environmental area. So it's, as I say, there's an awful lot going on there.
Rachel.
I had a brief look at it. I thought it looked fine.
Okay. Right. So we there were quite a few conditions around the ecology, Kirklees Council Ecology, the bat survey. So shall we say support subject to the conditions suggested by Kirklees Council officers? Yep. Okay. Go with that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Look, do we have to vote on each one?
Yeah, we're supposed to, really.
We're supposed to. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I
Okay.
think you all voted.
I'm a no.
Right.
I'm a no then.
Right.
It's just such a nice area.
You were a no, Darryl.
Yes, I'm a definite no.
You're a definite no. Right. Well, we need to vote. Let's vote again then. So those in favour of support subject to Kirklees officer decisions.
It's in a
Right,
nice green
that's-
area with loads of bats and environment and all kinds of stuff. And they'll want to cut all the trees down, which I don't think they should be doing either.
Not on this one, I don't think.
But it's
Right,
well, okay.
Is it the close? And so moving on to the next one, which is 30 Lease Avenues, which Councillor Roberts has said that she would like to support, wishes to support this.
I'd like to not support it.
To not support it, right?
But it's in a really nice, it's in a quiet area. The 30 Lees Avenues on a corner, right on a corner. So where they want to build the extension is currently where there's a lowered curb so they can park their car next to the wall where they want to put their extension. So if they put the extension there, that car will have to go on the road outside their house, which is right on the corner. It's the only patch of green on that particular street with trees, and I expect again they'll want to cut the tree down and shut the garden off once the wall's been extended forward. So no, it's no for me.
Right. Now I thought on this one,
Safety, environmental, and goodness knows what else.
there wasn't much information, I thought, on this particular application.
There's not. If you jump on the Google pictures, you can see it. Speak Google view.
Well, that may well be so, but in terms of the documents supplied for us, I thought it was a rather dearth of information on this one.
Yes.
Does anybody else wish to comment?
What was the?
I only looked at the plans that were on the planning website, which looked okay, but I think we can certainly reflect Daryl's concerns, knowing the exact area, and express concerns about the impact on highways if parking is lost as a consequence.
Because there's no other parking, they'll have to stick it right on their street outside.
So is that?
Did Councillor Roberts make a comment, Mary?
She did. She wished to support it, provided the materials were in keeping, was her comment.
I'll second her comment.
Well, shall we? What if we say support, provided that provided subject to materials being in keeping, but also noting the issues around ecology.
No, it's dangerous. I'm a no.
No, it's parking, isn't it?
You're a no. Right.
Parking issue, that's the problem.
Right.
Can I just interrupt a minute? I've got someone who wants to join the meeting called Fantastic Quiztastic. Does anyone know whether Michael has that name?
Oh, he could be. He does do quizzes, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. He may have loads of aliases that none of us is aware of. There he is.
It's him.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So have you decided on number 7? Sorry.
No, I think we're still batting it around. I mean, we could.
Why don't we say insufficient information?
Insufficient information. Yeah.
If impact
Come
on
to a decision.
highways and ecology.
Yeah.
Therefore, support planning on.
I'll say yes anyway. So.
Is that okay, Liz? Have you got?
Yeah, I think so.
You've got that, Rachel. Yeah. Thank you. Right. Moving on. Number 8.
Approve.
Approve. Support. Yep. That was my feeling. All those in favour of supporting that one? Yep. Hello, Michael. Right. And the next one is yours, Michael. It's number 9. Are you okay? It's 1 Silver Birch.
You're mute, Michael.
Michael, you need to unmute.
I think that's what he's trying to do.
Hey.
There you are.
Michael.
You've managed it.
Okay.
Yes, I've looked at that one. I'm fine with it. It's just a single story.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
fine.
So all in favour then? Okay. This is number 9. All in favour. Support. Thank you. Right. All right. Next one. Paul. 1 Cherry Tree Walk. This is a certificate of lawfulness.
I don't understand this. Is it something that's been built that shouldn't have been?
Didn't say, did it?
It doesn't. It doesn't say, and I
think we need more information.
I couldn't work it out, so I suggest
to get the certificate of lawfulness, it must be something that shouldn't be.
I think it's possible Michael wants to speak.
Yes, I believe it could be. Yeah, it's been very demonstrative. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, a certificate of lawfulness is usually when someone's built something that they thought they didn't need planning permission for, or they just went and built it anyway. Either they built it without planning. It's been built without planning permission. Sometimes it's because people didn't know that they needed planning permission, and sometimes it's because people just thought they'd get away with it. And so
sometimes it's Dominic Cummings.
But it's not. But it's been up. It's been up for that long. It's been up for that long that it doesn't need a retrospective planning application. It's just basically you get a certificate of lawfulness that it's been up for that long.
I think
Parish Council recognises it, so when you sell the house, you can sell it and you've got the certificate with it.
I don't think that is quite the situation here. I think the situation here is that whoever's wanting to build thinks they can build it with through permitted development rights.
Right.
So my suggestion is that we just defer to Kirklees planning decision
Yeah.
on this one. Can I just okay, so we show of hands on.
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right. Number 11, 106 Greenfield Road. Councillor Carey has no objection, and you suggested perhaps defer to Kirklees decision.
What's the problem with it?
It's discharging conditions.
Yeah, what's Councillor Carey's problem with it? Does he have a problem?
He has no problem with it.
No,
No,
he said okay, didn't he?
he says it's okay. Yeah,
Oh.
Rachel.
I
Sorry.
was just going to say,
If
for
it's okay,
discharging,
there's no. I don't see a problem with it.
I was just going to say, for discharging conditions, then I think we should just leave them to the.
Leave it. Defer to
conditions. Then. Yeah.
Defer to Kirklees planning. Okay, that's number 11. Okay, are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Smile at me. Thank you. Thank you, Darryl. Number 12, which is a Three the Heights Scholes. I thought this was okay, Paul.
No problem.
Okay, support. We happy? Yeah, support. Thank you. Right, and 45 Liphill Bank, which is Upperthorne. Rachel, did you?
Yeah, I had a look at it. I think it's fine. It's just at the back. They're just making better use of the fact the houses are on a very steep banking, so just sorting out a back door.
Councillor Carey also, it's the same comment as before. No objections. Defer to Kirklees Council. So I would support. I thought it was inoffensive. Support. Happy with that? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Darryl. And right, the next one is the conservation area. It's a modern building. It's just outside the Peak District National Park in Home, and Councillor Kath Bellamy had, I think it was no comment. I couldn't find any comment in her in her email. Rachel, did you?
Yeah, I had a quick look at it. I think it's an unremarkable property, and in fact, I think the conservation area for Home comments it is. I think it's fine. What they're proposing.
Yeah, that's what I find. Can I just have a show of hands then? We're happy to support this one. It's no change, hardly any change to external appearance apart from taking the chimney away. So that's support. Right. Right, the next one's a Scholes one. Paul, did you have a chance?
I've no problem with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the initial, I mean, yeah, okay, I that's what I thought as well. Are we happy to support that one?
They've already pinched the land that it's on off the council previously, so there's no point in pushing it any further.
Okay. Support. Number 16. If there's another permitted development rights. Again, Kath Bellamy, no comment on this one.
Deferred, I think it is.
Rachel, did you manage?
Yeah, well, this is one that's a neighbour, so I won't vote on it, but it's just a replacement of a conservatory at the back with a sort of garden room. To be honest, you can't see into their garden anyway because they've got a big fence, so it doesn't have any impact on overlooking anything like that.
Right, anybody else? So is support? I'm happy with it. Support it? Yep. Thank you. Right, next one, number 17. Councillor East has got, there's no comment. Kirklees Highway say it's okay. Pat, did you?
Support, that's completely unremarkable.
Yep. Okay, anybody else? Comments? Right, support. We go support. I'd support it. Right. The next one is an odd one. Everybody else picked this up. Number 18. I thought it was familiar when I first looked at it, and then I realised we had it before. And in fact, Kirklees gave permission on the 15th of October, so it's been approved. So we don't need to consider number 18. Okay. Right. Number 19, which is you, Michael.
Mulberry Wood, Hagroyd. Yeah.
Yes.
It seems fine to me. Yeah, I don't have any problems with it at all.
Right. Anybody else comments? No. I thought it was okay too. All right. Okay. Right. Support. Thank you. The next one is number 20 in Upper Thong. Councillor Carey, no comment. There was a supportive comment from a neighbour. Rachel, did you have a chance to look at it?
Yeah, I thought it looked fine.
Looked fine,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Right. So support. Okay. Show of hands, please. Sorry, I think you, because they're all busy writing. They just. Well, you may not be. I don't know what you're doing. Right. Right, now the next one is a little more challenging, is it not? Number 21.
I've had this before.
Yeah.
They've come back with a revised application, having responded to many of the issues raised by us, but also raised by Kirklees Planning. When we commented last, we objected because of the over-intensification of the site and the traffic issues. Kirklees is still raising cons despite the new proposals. Kirklees are still, various parts of Kirklees still raising objections and conditions. So cumulatively, the consultees have raised a lot of issues again. They have pulled down the number of dwellings. It was originally 25. The last one we looked at has gone down to 21, but it's still above the Kirklees Council recommended density, as in 38 houses per hectare rather than 35. So I don't know. Did anybody? Has anybody?
No, it's a dreadful place to put houses.
I think
it's a really nice area. So yeah, I think you'd have to just defer it back to the council because it's a big house they want to knock down and put all these little ones in. There doesn't seem to be any provision for smaller housing. They all seem quite large, and the road will be terrible because it's terrible now, and the estate isn't even up. So it's going right next door to another big estate, which is going up. And it's a tiny New Mill Road. It's not big. It's not a dual carriage or anything like that. So I think they'll have problems. But again, it'll end up being a Kirklees decision anyway.
Mary, should we not go back to our previous? I don't think they've addressed it properly. Our previous recommendation was to refuse on over-intensification.
Yeah.
It is still over-intensification. I think we refer back and just treat it as what we said last time and do the same again.
Thanks, Paul. Rachel,
The only thing I was going to say
and
is
then
that
Tom.
because it was a designated site in the local plan, and looking back at the
Yeah.
local plan, they suggested 12 homes on it. And obviously, they've then been much more greedy than that, and then suggested, I think then they go down to 25, and now they're suggesting 1. But when it was 25, because lots of the document, it was a bit confusing actually, because some of the documents talked about 25 houses and some talked about 21.
Yeah.
But the covering note obviously suggested that they reduced it to 21 to include open space and things like that. But I wasn't, as a consequence, clear on what size all the houses were, because when it was 25, it's worth bearing in mind 8 were 2 beds, 15 were 3 beds, and only 2 were 4+ beds. So actually, the mix of housing, I think, is quite good
Okay.
in terms of compared to other estates where the majority seems to be 4+ bed. So I do think we should probably comment that we support the provision of more smaller units, but are concerned about the highways impact on the New Mill Road and indeed the access to the site. I think that's a fair point. But it's a tricky balance, because you either get more smaller homes or fewer bigger homes.
Mary, previously an application was granted for half of the land, and it was for 4 houses. Our firm were involved with the property at that time, and it was suggested 4 houses at the back and then 4 at the front later, which meant that there was less road infrastructure. And at that time, to have the big house pulled down, to put 10 there would have been plenty. And I think that it's twice too many houses for what, and it would spoil what should be a nice area.
Oh, sorry, thanks, Paul. Tom, you've been waiting.
Yeah, it depends which way you look at it, because like what Dad suggested is, if you put you could put 5 massive houses on that site there, maybe even 7 or 8, like you mentioned. 7 or 8 big houses go for 300,000, 400,000 pounds, and yeah, it would be good. It'd be less road pulling out. It's not the easiest of roads to pull out from there. So you can have it that way, or you can have it the way that they're trying to do it on their plans, which is more houses which are smaller, which are better for first-time buyers, people wanting smaller houses, things like that. Second-time buyers quite often want to look to a pre-built. So I'm not too much against the type of houses on it, but like
I think it's a come back with fewer smaller houses.
The problem will be with highways on the road there, and it may be that they have to kind of bring in some kind of traffic calming on that road, because at the moment cars drive too fast on that road, and there's a lot of cars. So it may be that they have to think about some kind of traffic calming on that road.
So do we? Are we minded to object? I mean, it is on the local plan for housing, isn't it? I mean, we objected last time. Do we wish to object? Do we wish to object again on the grounds of over intensification?
Yeah, climate emergency. Say no. No, it's a no, Mary.
Sorry, let's.
It's a no.
Right. Who can I just say? Could you just show me who wishes to object to this?
Same
right. Okay. That's okay. Fine. So we're objecting again. Reiterate what we said last time. Objecting on the grounds of over intensification and the traffic issues.
Highways.
Yeah.
Climate emergency.
Okay. Right. Let's move on to the next one, which is School one again. Right.
Again.
Greenbelt.
Which is Highfield House, Mary?
It's quite close to those new ones that have been built on the left, going out from schools up to Heardedge. It's Greenbelt. I mean, these are going to be private stables. I mean, the building itself looks unremarkable and okay.
Greenbelt.
It's Highfield House on the left-hand side going up.
Yes.
Before Little Gate Lane. That's Margarita, isn't it?
I have no idea. Right.
No idea what they drink, Paul.
I know what they'll be doing. It'll be future further development, but never
So,
mind.
right. So
I,
this is.
I don't think in the circumstances there that if the materials are in keeping and it looks all right, I don't see there's any way we can object to it.
Yeah. So I think we support it.
No. No, they'll build a big house on it later.
Why? What's wrong with that? You can't.
We can only deal with the application we've got in front of us, not with what people may wish to do later on. So, shall we say
the fact that it's no, because it's greenbelt.
Shall we say
speak?
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Michael. Sorry.
Rachel and Michael.
I think Rachel had a hand up first.
I was just going to say, because this is about the stables, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
So why can't we ask for a condition that says it remains related to the
agricultural use?
Yes, it's retained for equestrian use only, associated with a house. Because then it can't,
okay.
You know, as you say, they have to apply again if they wanted to turn it into a separate house.
I mean, there is a strange anomaly with this, because part of the land that you want to build on, the owner doesn't actually own at the moment either. So I think we need to perhaps refer to
the owner doesn't own it.
The applicant doesn't actually own part of the land at the moment, but is close to buying it. There's a strange anomaly. So I mean, I feel we should support it, provided it stays as equestrian use, but
link to Highfield House.
Refer to Kirklees. Michael.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's got I mean, there's nothing to stop anybody applying for planning permission over land they don't own. That's not a material consideration. You have to declare that you've made the landowner aware, which will be part of the application form. As long as you've made them aware that I'm applying for planning permission on your land, there's nothing anybody could, you know, there's no law stopping that. So I don't think we can really comment on or take that into consideration, that side of it. However, I think agricultural use, I don't see no reason why you shouldn't leave it so it remains tied use to Highfield House. So
exactly, if tied use.
Yeah.
Agree with Michael there, tied use.
Okay.
Subject to being tied to Highfield House, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, are you happy with that? So that's support in general, to just support providing it remains for equestrian use and tied to Highfield House.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you not voting? No.
No,
I think that's a majority. That's a majority. Yeah, thanks. Right, number of 23, Upper Thong. Councillor Carey, no comments. Councillor Feeney, support the building in principle. Rachel.
I mean, I think it's a bit of infill in some respects. It's, you know, it's just a scratchy bit of land really. It's been left behind after all the development. The only concern I have having walked past it today is the sight lines on the exit to the drive, because there's big hedges and walls there. So I think they need to do something about the visibility as they pull out, which I know is one of the concerns of the neighbours at the place. But I'm not averse to the principle of development. It's effectively infill in that area.
Okay. Did anybody else look at it? Yeah. I'd agree with that. I mean, there are traffic issues, aren't there? So we're saying support, but to defer to the
subject to highway approval.
Subject to highway approval. Okay. Right. The next one, number 24. It's a listed building. It's in the green belt. Councillor Carey, no comment. Defer to Kirklees Council. Councillor Feeney, support but refer to heritage, Kirklees Heritage. Rachel, did you manage? There were a lot.
Yeah, it's just sort of a garden room at the back. I think it looked fine, but I'm happy for us to say support the heritage officers, conservation officers.
Did anybody else want to comment on it? I agree with Rachel. I thought it looked fine. So so support, but refer to the Kirklees Heritage. Yeah. Okay. Can I have a show of hands? Thank you. And finally, number is Rachel again. Number 25.
It's quite a fun
It's
one.
the old railway carriage.
Exactly. It's completely dilapidated, but they've been using it. It's all part of them trying to replace it with something which they can put solar panels on and store their biomass boiler wood. So I think it's the conservation officer is content, which is relevant because it's an old factory. So I think it's okay and we should support it.
Yes, I thought it was okay. So support, show of hands, support. Yeah, okay, support. Thank you. And then the last two were on the list. Were not in.
There's a number 28 after those two. In Netherthorn.
Final page.
Oh, right. Who missing off mine? Right. Okay. Who looked at this one?
I've had a quick look. It seems okay.
Okay.
It's not like.
Yeah, that's it, is it?
Anybody else look at it?
Yeah.
No.
I thought it looked okay as well.
It's nothing remarkable. It's just like a building.
Councillor Roberts looked at it.
Councillor Roberts, okay. Councillor Roberts thought it was okay. Yeah. So support.
The one thing I would comment is, as long as it's not on land that was purchased by the Holmfirth Urban District Council for road widening. Because there is a strip of land all the way from the bottom to the top that was bought in the 1970s for road widening up there. And Kirklees have never taken it up.
I assume that the Kirklees officers would be aware of that.
No, they're not, because they've allowed people. They've allowed people to build on the land that was purchased by the compulsory purchase, and it's gone on for years.
I think it's just going. I think it's just going up in their
I was
garden,
trying
isn't
to
it?
bring it to the attention of the new councillors that there was such a thing.
I thought it was just going up in their garden.
Yeah, I think it's at the back, isn't it?
If it's in their garden, it's not bound to be in their garden. The garden might belong to the council.
It's behind a huge hedge.
I think we've got to assume it won't. So can I just have a show of hands for support for this final one? Thank you.
I don't think you'll ever see it.
All right.
Thank
you.
All them trees get chopped down and widen the road. Yes.
It's a big hedge.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but my presence is wanted elsewhere. I will have to go and leave you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Paul. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thomas,
thank you.
Thomas, can you ring me when we're finished? There's one item about the barber shop. I want to know what the answer to that was. All right. Thank you.
Right. That's interesting. Right. So,
Depends how many times you go to the barber shop.
Not to get there in the next 2 days if you want to go to the barber shop.
Item 79. Which was the Kirklees officers, planning officers' decisions. So there were 3 decisions that differed from the decisions that we'd made, but I had a look at them all. I couldn't actually discern any kind of pattern of what we might, because there were 2.
They weren't major, were they?
No, the 2 where we supported and Kirklees turned them down, and 1 going the other way. So anyway, you've had the list. So it moves on to neighbourhood planning.
Actually, sorry, Mary, can I just comment on one of them? Because I just thought it was quite intriguing. That the road adjacent to One Longlands Bank had a succession of planning applications passed on it in the end, and then and then it seemed that Kirklees were actually sort of taking a different approach to it about the impact on the visual, I don't know, the urban impact, something, a big wall.
Yeah.
But they did also seem to be reflecting environmental concerns as well. So I thought it was interesting that they were they are happy to go back on when there's a strong planning history on a site. Yeah. It was so the first time I've obviously noticed that actually, even if something has a long planning history where planning has sort of been achieved and maybe not enacted but achieved, that you can still end up with refusal, which I just felt was quite encouraging.
It's good.
It is, look a bit fresh each time.
It is good, isn't it? If it's new evidence and new thinking that can actually, you're welcome. Thanks, thank you, Rachel. Okay, item 80, neighbourhood planning.
Oh right, sorry. Hang on.
Right.
You're on.
Well,
you're on. You're on again.
The update is it's going to Kirklees Cabinet on the 18th of November. The officers have recommended that, I mean, they've got a whole raft of ongoing concerns with it, but they've confirmed that it meets the necessary legal checks, and they've completed their process, if you like, for assessing that it's suitable to progress to the next stage, which is the consultation called Regulation 16, which the local planning authority, so Kirklees, does. And we then appoint an independent planning inspector who will then review the plan, review Kirklees' comments, Peak District's comments, and then come back to us with any questions, and then decide whether it gets adopted in full or adopted in modifications or rejected. So we should hear after the 18th of November if it's gone through Kirklees Cabinet. But the expectation, I mean, spoken to Paul Davies today in his Kirklees capacity, because he was briefed on it earlier, is that it will go through Cabinet, but I know the planners, some of the planners have concerns about it, but that's incidental. It's whether it goes through Cabinet and then it's in the hands of the inspector.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's tribute to the thoroughness of the work that went into it, isn't it? We did agree at the last meeting, if there was no progress by today, that the committee would write to Kirklees, but I guess there is progress. Is it?
We don't need to.
There's no point. There's no point in writing to Kirklees. I think there's sufficient evidence of sufficient progress there not to pick that up. Right. Thank you. Peak District National Park Authority, item 81. Can we note the list of decision notices, which was that's item 1, which was the Home Castle change from residential to commercial use. Do we need to do a show of hands on that? We note it. Right, thank you. New and amended applications. So, right. In effect, there were 2 of these, but right. The first one is familiar again, because this has come back, a resubmission of a previous application, which changed in response to the Peak District National Park planners. So they've come back with it again. But they still don't seem entirely happy. The planners, Peak District National planners, still don't seem entirely happy with it. Rachel, did you?
I had a look at it, yeah. I mean, they're still asking for changes, I think it's the angle of the roof or something like that. I still think we support it.
Yeah. We did support we supported the previous one, so should we be happy with support again, subject to the building meeting the conditions which are being requested by the Peak District National planners? Okay, are we happy with that? Okay, right. And the last 2 are both about 22 Upper Fold Farm, which is listed building consent for mostly internal alterations. Rachel?
Yeah, look at this. Seems to be creating a. I say Tom's just fallen off the call.
Coming back. There he is.
There he is.
The creation of a bedroom to replace an old cattle stalls. So there's some quite fun pictures of all the bits of building that are going to be reused. But I think in principle we should support it. It's expansion of within a property by the people who've apparently lived there for 15 years already. So it's not. Well, I don't know. I just feel we should support it. Externally, you don't seem to be able to tell the difference anyway.
Yeah, yes, I looked at it too, and I thought it was fine. It wouldn't make any virtually no difference to the external appearance of the buildings. So do we support that one? Okay, show of hands, you support it. Thank you. And if we supported that one or two, then the next one is we'll support that one too. Okay, as it's the same application. Right. Right. Just looking at the time, we're not doing too badly, I think. So item 82, which is ways of working for the planning, ways of working for this committee. And I've sent round a discussion paper, which is just a basis of discussion really, and it's in a way anticipating the fact that in a few months' time this committee will have a lot of responsibility around we hope, if everything goes smoothly, around the neighbourhood development plan. So it was thinking about how we might work perhaps more smartly, but also perhaps extend some of the areas that have customarily been looked at. So I'll just if you've got the document in front of you, the first part of the context, we'll just pass over that. I'll pass over dealing with planning applications. Heading of number 3 was about working with other committees, because it had been my perception that committees worked very much in a kind of silos. They didn't communicate, did lots of good work, but a lot of it's been very, very self-contained. And there are issues which actually cross across the responsibilities of different committees. And I think the climate emergency has highlighted that issue particularly, and then there's recently the Wolfstone footpath 60 diversion has also cut across the remit of some of the committees. But I'm really happy to say that Rachel called a meeting of all committee chairs on the 20th of October and just sort of started a dialogue really. Would you like to just say something, Rachel, about that?
Yeah, I guess, well, for the benefit of those who weren't there, I think what I was doing is just bringing the chairs together, conscious that we had 2 kind of key documents which actually have a lot of actions and ambitions in them, which we as a parish council have committed to, and need to make sure that our sort of committee structure and our council kind of works kind of collaboratively to achieve it. So one is the neighbourhood development plan, which has, obviously it's got the planning policies, but that's one side of it. The other side of it is all the actions that sit within it, many of which aren't planning issues. There are a whole range of other things which were raised during the consultation and the things that we can push forward. Some are related to planning, but some are more about the services we run or how we support different community assets, for example. So would sit under the CAS umbrella. So I've looked at that and sort of tried to sketch out roughly which committees different things might sit in. So there might be sort of proactive things that the committee can say, well, how could we help deliver some of these actions? And then the second document was, of course, the climate change, climate emergency action plan. Obviously, we've got Michelle to help drive some of that forward, but again, there's lots of actions in there, some of which sit with different committees. And I think the issue recently with the development, I think it was in Wesley Avenue, Netherthong, was one that was brought to the fore by a member of the public saying, well, hang on a minute, you've got a planning committee looking at it and thinking through material considerations, but that doesn't necessarily sit quite with what the climate emergency committee is trying to do. So what I've started is just a bit of a conversation about the fact that perhaps as a parish council we need to strategically sort of say, right, we've got these two documents, how do we sort of pull together a bit more of a coherent vision of where we're trying to get to in in the long run, which will obviously evolve and change over time, but we should make sure the committees are all, you know, where possible, at least aware of what's happening and trying to build towards something that doesn't sort of, you know, things don't fight between the committees, if you like. And the reason I particularly raised it recently is just that we're starting to think about budgets for next year, so I just thought it was important that people recognised it wasn't just a case of taking necessarily the budget from last year and all the agenda items that always appear. There might be some other things that we need to start thinking about taking forward. So it's just the start of the concept of having some sort of vision strategy that says, well, what are we trying to achieve as a parish council? So obviously Mary's document was really helpful in that regard as well, because it's thinking about, well, the future of planning. We've obviously historically looked back at, like, these are planning applications, it's a monthly cycle, and you know, we go through it, but actually there's elements where we could shape stuff. So things that come out of the neighbourhood plan that might be pushing for conservation area appraisals to be developed, or looking for design guides, or helping householders who live in conservation areas or heritage assets. What are the things that matter? How could they support them, and how could you be energy efficient in while still adhering to heritage? There's lots of different things that could be driven forward, not just responding to planning applications. So I think Mary's documents really helpful in terms of just highlighting some of the key things. And I think also, I'll just finish for a second, just looking at all the applications, I think we're so conscious that we get a lot of applications, really. I mean, we're sort of mid-20s each time, because it used to get less than that. I don't know whether there's just more planning applications, but there are some where, like discharge of conditions, for example, we don't have the technical expertise to decide if they've been adequately discharged. So is there really any value in us spending time talking about it? Probably not. Whereas the bigger developments, which are more having an impact, or areas where residents have raised concerns, I think we should have a say on them.
Thank you. Sorry. Thanks, Rachel. Before I just say a little bit about these ideas about dealing with planning applications, does anybody want to say anything? Anybody want to respond to what Rachel said, or the whole idea? Oh. Yeah,
just to agree and endorse.
Silent.
I agree and endorse what has been said.
I agree too.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So dealing with planning applications, yeah, as Rachel said, I mean, there's a lot, aren't they? And they do take a long time, and they can dominate the meetings, which, you know, and they are important. But these bullet points here are a suggestion of how we might perhaps speed up some of this process by having some standard replies. So standard replies to listed building consents, discharge of conditions, and tree preservation orders, and working initially on the assumption that that development would be supported, but look more closely at a set of applications which meet certain criteria. What I'm suggesting is that we don't try and make a decision about this tonight, but perhaps we have this on this dealing with planning applications on the agenda for the next meeting and make a point there. So Michael wants to speak first, and then Pat. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, I think the assumption that we would, I think I'd like to change the wording if possible, the way it's written, because if we're not going to look at something or discuss something, I think it's very difficult for us to say we're going to support it. So I would say if we don't look at it and we're not going to comment on it, we make no observations, is what we would say, rather than we support it, because we're supporting something that we've not actually looked at and discussed. Does that make any, you know, so I would rather say we're, you know, as a way of...
No observation, yeah.
No observations, rather than, I think we can support something we've looked at, or we can refuse to support it, but something we've not looked at, I can't see how we can, I think we have to make, yeah. So that's the first thing.
Amend that. Yeah, okay.
And I think it's to be conscious of the, like, you know, the planning committees, you know, Kirklees Planning Committee don't look at every single application that happens within the whole of Kirklees. You know, a lot of them are down to officer discretion. Yeah. So we're not really falling out of, you know, and I think the list that you've put forward of the things that we would look at is quite a good sieve in process, that we're looking at the ones that would be more relevant to look at. However, I think we should also mind councillors that whilst the committee may not be looking at them, it doesn't mean that councillors themselves, board councillors, shouldn't look at them, because there may be something that falls down to,
Okay.
it's still individual council. They should all get looked at by one of the councillors, but it might not come to committee unless they decide it's
Right.
worthwhile. Does that make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yes. Yeah. I mean, what I'll do if you agree is I shall redraft. I shall reword this section 2 on
Yeah.
the document, so to make it solely dealing with planning applications.
Yeah.
And perfectly happy to accept more amendments, before the next meeting. Pat, sorry.
Can I suggest at the next meeting we have, when we're looking at applications, we have this list and we decide which ones we would have just sent straight through to officers and which ones we might have, so that we get a sense of how many we're getting. I'll rephrase that. I'll go back. How many we're getting rid of.
Well,
Please don't minute it like that.
how many are not coming to committee?
Sorry? Yes, how many are not going to come to
Going to
committee,
committee.
and how many would? And then we've got to send,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe perhaps we could have a look at them beforehand.
If we have your redrafted list in front
Yeah.
of us, we can.
Yeah, it'd be quite good to match, and then we'll see if we've got any gaps on our, on the suggested
Yeah.
applications that we want to look at. I think these things only work when you actually put them into practice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else with any? Right. So are we happy to decide? I just wanted to, before I say that, I just wanted to check. Is this something that needs to go to full council with this change of practice, or potentially? No, it's our practice. So yeah, fine. So we'll put this on the this will go on the agenda. I'll redraft it, and this will go on the agenda of the next planning committee. But before that, I'll try and see if I could call it. Yeah.
Are we able to send you personal comments before the meeting, so you can
Yes, sorry.
adapt,
I thought I just said that. Yeah, please. Yes.
so you can adapt your document beforehand? That would be good.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, certainly. I'm happy to accept any suggested amendments, which we can discuss at the next meeting and then take a decision. Is that okay, Liz? Is that all right? Got it. Thank you. Right, moving on. I'm conscious that we've got a quarter of an hour left, haven't we? And the next one is the Kirklees Council consultation on supplementary planning documents. These are documents which explain how the local plan policies are going to be applied in more detail. There are three of them out for comment at the moment. Design guide, house extensions and alterations, open space, house builders, and also one on biodiversity. It's responses by is online. I feel it would be probably too big a job for the committee to get a response together by the end of the consultation, which is the 30th of November, but maybe all planning committee members, should they so wish, could respond as individuals, and perhaps we could put a note on the website urging individuals,
Would it not have more authority if we responded as a planning committee? We forwarded ideas and wrote them down in a bullet pointed format, says, look, this is what.
Well,
If you volunteer to do that, Darryl, then
want you to do that, yeah. Just
I think if we're going to comment, I think it should be as the committee. So I'm quite happy to collate ideas. It's in the individual. My concern is that if someone says what does the planning committee think, and we've got 8 individuals who said something totally different to what the planning committee thinks it's saying, then what does the planning committee actually
But,
think?
I mean,
Is it
I suppose what I'm suggesting is that we don't, because it's over complex to respond, and if we respond, we respond as individuals, and you have to. I mean, I don't mean as individual members of the planning committee.
So you're saying so you're saying as a planning committee we take a backward step and say we're not going to comment on this? Okay.
I am. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Michael's wanting to speak.
I was just saying, sort of. I mean, if people wanted to make their own comments and send them a canvas, they have right to do that. They could do that. If you want to say copy them to Daryl, and they can have a look at them. And if there's a consensus among the responses, they can put something together.
Yeah.
It becomes difficult when all 8 of them are completely different, opposed, you know, or very much opposed responses, because then we'd have to agree a response by the committee and vote on it and send it. And if we haven't got a meeting before the 30th, that proves kind of difficult. But I suppose if the responses are very much of a consensus, and we can just say, and Daryl circulates it, and we agree to it, then
just send me some bullet points.
I think
that's a great idea, Michael.
What it will be very difficult because of the way the consultation is constructed online. It would be difficult to actually respond, but to respond online, it would have to be in the form of a document, I would have thought. Tom.
You're mute, Tom.
No, you mute. There you go.
Right, okay. We've got another meeting on the 23rd of November. So if members are able to put, they can put their own submissions into Kirklees, and if they're able to send them also to Daryl, and Daryl puts something together for the next meeting, we can formalise it then.
I think we should have I'm just concerned if we have an integrity as a planning committee, we should have a planning committee response.
Yes. I think I agree with that. You know, and I think when you're given an opportunity to comment, really you should comment if you can. So if you're willing to do the collating, Daryl, then we can feed our comments.
Let's give it a deadline. Let's say this time next week. By this time next week, send bullet pointed comments, which will give me sort of a week to write it all together and send it.
Clear and concise.
Right. Yes. Do you want?
It just needs to be a small thing, but I'm just concerned we need to do something.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Are we happy with that course of action then? If we've got, we can respond as private individuals, but if we've got more general comments, we send them to Daryl, and we'll have that on the agenda at the next meeting.
Okay. Can
I just have a show of hands? Are we happy with that as a course of action? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Daryl. Enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Well, thank you next time. Right, moving on, because we've got 10 minutes. Right. Issue with the shop frontage. So the deputy clerk emailed Kevin Walton and has had no response. And this issue was originally raised in mid-August, so it's getting a bit long in the tooth now. So really, Rich was asking what would we wish to do? Do we wish to take some more? Do we wish to take any more action or wait, Rachel?
Was the response just sent to Kevin Walton? Because can it be sent to the next person up in the food chain? Kirklees?
We could try that, couldn't we?
Head of I guess.
It was
Matthias.
Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to say, can we copy in the ward councillors as well?
Yes, I was going to say that. Yep. So Matthias Franklin, do you think, Michael? Yeah. Right. Okay, we're happy with that course of action. That we ask Rich to write to Matthias Franklin and copy it to the ward councillors.
Can I make a very quick comment?
You may.
Just very briefly, which is, it was pointed out to me when I was talking about the various barbers shops that we have to be careful that this doesn't become a racist issue. Because someone pointed out that, okay, because I'm a white male English person and I don't go to such establishments, these are cultural cultural places that certain communities do go to, and they won't walk into other barbers shops. Hence, by saying, oh, look, you can't do this or represent your shop or put that on the street or put these images up, we are therefore being racist, saying, no, you've got to do this. And it's something I never even thought about.
Michael, then Tom.
I think our concerns are the visual amenity of
That's
this
right,
business is not in the keeping. Now, none of what I would say of what there is culturally or religiously sensitive around what the business is what we're objecting to. We're objecting to it's not in keeping with the local area, yeah, and the other shop frontages. So I don't think this, you know, I don't see it as it's really an issue in this context of it. Yeah, it's you know, we're not talking about a pub that's changing to a madrasa and we think, you know, we're arguing there. It is a barber's shop. It may be a Turkish barber's or a Kurdish barber's or however, but I mean, lots and lots. Their main clientele will be young British men going in there because that is where people go for their haircutting now. Young men, you know, facial grooming, which is what these sort of people's places specialise in, is what young men like to have done these days. They like to go and have a shave, like to have their beards properly trimmed and groomed, and that's what these businesses specialise in. So, I don't see how it's really a cultural kind of issue. In more in a sense that it's purely the visual amenity that doesn't fit in.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to add as well that we do have a precedent as parish council of raising issues about other shop fronts previously as well, and within the Home Firth, like travel agents and the WH Smiths by the bus station. We have raised other complaints as well, so it's not really just targeted at these two.
No, well, I was just raising a concern that two students mentioned to me as in passing that it could be seen as racial because it's a type of ethnic barbers, etc., which I didn't see, to be honest with you, and I still don't really see that, but there we go. I think we just need to be aware.
Yeah, I think we are aware. I mean, that issue was raised up when we first discussed this issue. I'm conscious that I don't really want us to delay CASC, and we've only just more than 5 minutes.
Actually, since the CASC chairman may have to have a comfort break right now. Excuse me.
Oh, thank you. Too much information, Pat. Right. Item 85, application to divert a footpath. Wolfstones. Footpath 60, Wolfstones. Yeah, I think you'll be aware of this. We had Noel Scanlon came and spoke to us in no uncertain terms at our last meeting. And since then, there's been quite a lot of beavering away in the background. Rachel has been doing a lot of data collection, and the deputy clerk's been ferreting out ancient maps and so on. So there's been we've been collating the objections that we've received. So we in a sense preparing for the fact that at some point we might possibly have to go to a public inquiry and defend our decision. But we've had some, I would say, very positive advice really from Charles Cheetham, the Public Rights of Way officer, who is coming to the full council meeting, we think, don't we? That it's not unreasonable to object to a draft order if you can substantiate what your reasons are. There's also really positive advice from YLCA, who did admit that it's more difficult with a footpath than with a building, really, because if your observations are honest, that is a defence, and you need to link it into the local development plan. So that's that's where we are. It may or may not go to a public inquiry. There may be some element of risk, but Kirklees have objected to the redirection of the plan, and they're maintaining their objection. So we need to develop a clear case based on material planning considerations if it comes to that. So that's going to the full council. That
Yeah.
is
No,
where we are. Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. You're happy with that? Moving on, the upper graveyard. As you know, it's not our responsibility.
Nothing to do with us.
We knew, but I assume that a note. It may already have gone. Really, a note to Jean Murray. I mean, just to kind of close the loop, it would be good perhaps to just inform Jean Murray, who was the member of the public who brought the issue to our attention, that we have followed this. Unfortunately, it's not within our remit to do anything.
Use slightly nicer language than the YLCA is recommending, just a little
yes.
bit more friendly.
Yes.
That's
Well,
Bossy McGoss face again, isn't it?
Well, I think we can rely on Rich or Liz, whoever's doing it, to come up with some. It's right. Come up with something. Planning. Okay, last item, nearly on time. The planning for the future. This is just to note the fact that we did respond to that, so that has gone in. So we just noted. Right. Thank you. Right. I think that's it. But just to say that we need to. So that's the end of the meeting. Thank you for attending and your contributions. But we need to think about the budget. We need for the next meeting. We need to be thinking about the budget, which has been only about the neighbourhood development plan, hasn't it? And that's been the only item of budget. Right. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Enjoy
Thank you,
Cass.
Mary. Liz,
Sorry.
can I just stay here?